It's 9 a.m. and we'll get started. We've got a little spill here, but we will navigate forward and get that cleaned up. But good morning, and this is our regular meeting. Today is May the 12th. It's hard to believe that we have moved to the middle of May, but we're here. And I'd like to call our meeting to order, and I'd like to ask you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hamilton, good morning. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hostetler.
Present.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Wallace. Mr. Corman.
Present.
Mr. Ellison. Mr. Pratt.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Mr. Culbertson.
Here.
Judge Covington.
Present. Thank you. Previous meetings' minutes have been shared with you, and would like to ask for any comments or questions related to those minutes as presented. Motion from Mr. Livingston, second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Transfers as presented. Any questions, comments related to those transfers? Motion. Second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Bills and hand checks. Take note there on jail general $200,000, and then we had a couple hand checks. Creative Concrete $19,125, and then WEX, which is our fuel. You received that just yesterday, and if we don't pay that, we get cut off. So we need to pay that. So that's $9,969.32.
That Creative Concrete, is that the...
That is the final payment for the fire department flooring.
Oh, I was thinking, have the steps
He
already...
finished yesterday and would have had to wait for his
Sure.
check.
No, we've already taken care of that.
Well, got you. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second for Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let the record reflect that clerk's fees in the amount of $117,610.04 has been submitted. And let the record reflect that sheriff's fees from Sheriff Tony Hampton were submitted in the amount of $90,784.37. That will move us to the Parks and Recreation grant application, and we have some slides that we can pull up. Cortland, is that correct? Yes. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Also have some paper copies that include the rendering and the quote that was sent to us. But I'm here to request approval for the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for Burton Park.
So the request would be to submit the application for land and water funding.
Yes, sir.
And the court would be approving a match. What would the match be in what amount?
So the match would be $175 for you and then $175 for the city.
Okay.
What's the total?
The total is $500,000, so $250 from the grant and then $250 split in half from
So
county and city.
we have some renderings here, and this would be a complete.
125, sorry.
That's all right.
I'm not either this morning.
The rendering reflects a total overhaul. I do know from being out there that, there's a, JR and I've looked at, there's a wet spot that it's a spring in it, JR, that is an issue. And then, that's a big footprint of for a playground, it's a big footprint for mulch as well. One remark from Master Dwayne Ellison, he could not be here today because of a conflict, but he's been out there to inspect, and he wanted me to share with the court that he feels like a total remake is not necessary, and that we could put together some substitution pieces and kind of fill in for the ones that do need to be redone, but not a total remake. So that's a comment from one magistrate. After looking at this just briefly, what's any other comments or questions for Cortland? And then just to clarify, there's already land and water at Brooking Park, so you're not doing anything new as far as putting a land and water conservation easement on a new piece of property. It's already covered by a land and water conservation grant easement from years ago.
So this isn't putting in mulch, this is putting in...
A poured in place. So it would get rid, the whole quote includes all the equipment, all the play structures, a poured in place, and then a concrete border around that playground.
So how long, what's the lifespan of this, and is it tire mulch, or what exactly is it?
I believe it's tire mulch. I believe that's what poured in place is made out of. And typically the lifespan is 20 years. So the lifespan of a playground.
Estimate there, it's called PIP, rubber surfacing with DGA base, 8 degree fall, 106.
Square footage is right now? I mean, are we expanding?
So the square, I don't know what the square footage is now, but the square footage of that playground is a little over 9,000.
Yeah, I was wondering if we're expanding the area that we're providing cover over here.
Question,
Well,
Mr. Hostetler.
Cortland, would you mind to hit those numbers again? I was flipping through when you talked about,
Yeah, so for the match,
yes.
it would be 125 for the city and 125 for the county. And then the grant would provide the other half.
Where does this fall with the parks master plan? Like, cause it's almost done, right?
The master plan won't be done until October. So we're just
So-
in the
so-
beginning
So why
stages.
are they doing this then? Why do you all want to do this ahead of that? Like, or is this?
What's the deadline for the land and water grant?
The grant is due by the end of the month, so the 31st of May.
That's the,
And this
The
will be,
rationale.
I know Kim applied back in 2021, 2020. And then last year, I know we requested, and it ended up getting pulled. So she wanted me to put this together.
Next round of funding could be released.
For
On
the,
the land and water grant, when,
so it's every year.
so just once a year?
Mhm.
I suppose without the grant, you guys would not move forward if you didn't get it.
Correct.
Well, you would be paying for it, and the city.
Well, that was my next question. We become the grant.
Yes, we become the grantee, the grantor.
And I know that Brooking Park is a heavily used playground.
what's been shared in the past is that that's the most heavily used playground.
How long does the grant, well, let me ask you this, do you all have the grant application already drawn up?
Yes.
Okay.
And this, the land and water is a 50% match.
So has the city already looked at it?
No. I wanted to bring it to the county first since it is a county park.
Let me ask you this, if the deadline's the 31st and we have another meeting on the 25th, would the court like to go out there and put their eyes on it between now and then?
Not a bad idea.
And
I'd be curious too if Dwayne maybe could share his thoughts on what could be done and
Dwayne
maybe the
couldn't be
cost.
here.
Yeah.
Now, Dwayne did mention, just the mulch being a big issue to him as well. And I don't know if he was aware that this pour and play surface was part of the proposal, which makes a big difference because It would, to me.
So is this, when you say pour and play, is that like a mulch type material, or is it a?
Have you been to the Kendall and Friends playground behind the
So
pavilion?
that type of
surfacing.
surface, okay, okay.
Thoughts, questions, any other
Yeah,
questions?
that type of surface
I like
is not
Because
loose.
there's no maintenance essentially.
Yeah, it's not loose either.
Right.
It's a.
Right.
It's like a rubber mat on
Yeah.
it.
And it comes with the warranty, so if something happens, it's covered.
Would the pleasure of the court be to table this until the 25th? Allow you all to go have time to swing by Brooking Park. If you want to go by the Kendall and Friends and look at the surface yourself, I'm just throwing out options.
I'd like to know if the city's going to include it in their budget as well.
Which that'll give time for, make a presentation there. I'd like to do that, Judge, and I was trying to look through here, these numbers. Well, there's the square footage. Do you have any idea the square foot of this compared to what's there?
I'm not sure what the square footage is out there now, but that square footage is a little over 9,000.
Yeah, it's 9,300, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I've made a note to put it on the 525 agenda.
And
Tell me different.
I'd like to check with some of the schools I work with to see what their budget was on when they were building their structures at their elementary schools.
so I think that's the general sentiment, to gather some more data, have time to go by and look at it firsthand, Cortland.
Okay.
And then if you could come back on the 25th, and if there's any questions between now and then I will shoot them your way.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Sounds great.
I have a quick
David
question.
Livingston.
I mean,
I'm
we
sorry.
only have one proposal, so is there only one?
Yes, there's only one from Miracle Playground.
Are they on the
which
state contract?
I believe so, yes. Because they've done our other
So they do
playgrounds.
all the schools in the state of Kentucky, all the
No.
elementary schools? So there's got to be other,
From my understanding, there's just like two.
There's Miracle and then there's Play Pros.
and
That was
they-
a question I was going to have.
Yeah.
Would this have to be put out to bid, or could it be bought off state contract?
Is it on state contract?
We'll have to get that
Okay.
data. Can you get that data for me?
I can?
And I'll share it with the court.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That meeting's at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. on the 25th.
Yeah. But if you'll email me that about
That's a lot of money.
if they're on the state contract and that information, that'd be great. Thank you. Ordinance 2305, first reading, planning and zoning. Joe, Kane, good morning. How are you? We read a summary of this at our last work session. Had some few questions. Are there any questions or comments before Cam reads the summary? And I'll ask him to read the summary, then we can have any other questions or comments, and then we can try to go from there. All right, Cam, will you read the summary?
Yes, sir. Scott County Fiscal Court, ordinance number 23-05. An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of Scott County, Kentucky, and the cities of Georgetown, Sadyville, and Stamping Ground pertaining to dimension and area regulations, and amending the Georgetown, Scott County landscape and land use buffers ordinance pertaining to perimeter landscaping requirements, property perimeter requirements, and agricultural buffering. Summary. 1. Amends the zoning ordinance of Scott County, Kentucky, and the cities of Georgetown, Sadyville, and Stamping Ground, or zoning ordinance, section 4.19, dimension and area regulations, to state that the minimum setback for secondary structures from land zone A1 shall be 50 feet. 2. Amends the Georgetown, Scott County landscape and land use buffers ordinance, or landscape and land use buffers ordinance, as follows. Section 6.10 is amended to state that no single tree species shall be used for more than 1/3 of the plantings to meet the requirements of sections 6.12 or 6.13. B. Section 6.12 regarding property perimeter requirements is amended as follows. 1. To require that when any residential zone adjoins an agricultural zone, a minimum buffer area of a width of 50 feet is required adjacent to all common boundaries except street frontage, and that trees therein must be planted at least 35 feet from the property line. 2. To prohibit planting invasive or harmful species of trees in the buffer. 3, to prohibit residential fences and roads within the 50-foot buffer. C, section 6.114, regarding agricultural buffering is amended as follows. 1, to require that the minimum setback for all building structures, pools, etc., when adjoining the A1 zoning district is 50 feet. 2, to require that when land zoned, anything except A1 or C1 is developed, the developer shall construct a 6-foot minimum height fence. 3, to require property boundary fencing for all parcels adjoining A1 zone land when there is an approved change of use to a use other than agricultural or single-family residential use. And 3, provides for an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination at the office of Scott Fiscal Court Clerk, 101 East Main Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, introduced and publicly read for the first time on May 12, 2023.
Questions?
Judge, I was just going to ask Mr. Tingle, he's here with the Conservation District, if he had any comments or any
Mr.
thoughts.
Tingle,
Not
would you
to
like
put-
to make
Not
any
to put you on
comments?
the spot.
Oh,
Because, well, Kevin, one of the questions was in our workshop, one of the main concerns was about, I think it was about the height of the fence and the width of the setback, and I shared my thoughts from being in all those meetings that because the farmer would be spraying or whatever, so they didn't want that overspray, and they wanted to deter as much as they could people climbing the fence. So, and that was one or two of the questions that we had, and I thought if you wanted to, you might address it.
You hit it properly, because basically we're doing two things. The right to farm, because there has to be a setback from when spraying and so forth is done for safety. When a new development comes in, instead of the farmer losing land and have to cut down on his production out of his pocket, and that would be ongoing, then the development will set aside the easement. And then if the farmer next door wants to sell to the development, then that development company can take that easement, keep pushing it, and can reuse it. Another thing is, basically, besides that, the fence, kids don't need to be on farms. Whether it be livestock farms, because all those animals seem friendly, they'll turn on you in a heartbeat, especially a bull. And then the other thing is, on a lot of these old farms, including mine, there are sinkholes that pop up and other dangerous things that children should not be around. So that's another reason for the no-climb fence. On the species of trees and plants, we've done some research down at the Conservation District, and there are a whole lot of common use ornamental plants that are dangerous to livestock. And if they get a hold of it, it can kill them. This country is full of wild cherry. Do you all remember back when we had all the foals that died in this area? We had a bagworm issue. The bagworms love wild cherry. Wild cherry dried is arsenic. And so we lost a whole lot of foals back several years ago just because of the wild cherry. Also, if you put up a new fence, you got an old tree, it falls on the fence, you got to start all over again. So if you don't have the tree in the fence row, you won't have to worry about that on long term as well. Anything else?
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
Make a motion.
This is on, we have a motion, and
Yeah.
this is just on new developments.
Sure.
On new development. And we have a motion. Would there be a second? A second from Mr. Kelly Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we'll lead us on our agenda to capital projects financing. R.J. Palmer. R.J., thanks for being here. We Zoomed with R.J. last week, And I'm going to turn it over to RJ to just remind you, what we're considering today.
Thank you, Judge, members of the court. So, as we discussed last week, we have a couple of options for funding your capital projects, and that is an option to do a competitive bank deal or to do a capital markets deal. Given the rate environment that we're in now, with the increases that the Fed's passed along over the course of the last year, bank deals are a little more complicated. 2 years ago, they would have been very easy. Now they're a little more complicated. Their effort to reduce the amount of time that they're locking money is reduced, is shortened. So with that, to me, the capital markets deal is a cheaper, more feasible way for you all to fund your capital projects, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 3% versus 4.25% for a fixed rate bank deal. You obviously give up the flexibility that we've discussed previously to pay it off early with the capital markets deal because it will be non-callable for the entire 10 years. We've also discussed that there is a way to legally defease that once it's outstanding by setting money aside in an escrow account that will have enough cash in it to make the remaining payments, then pay it off at maturity. So that will legally remove it from,
our budget.
Your budget, right? Your balance sheet. But you can do that at any time, right? We just have to calculate what's the amount of cash needed to put in the escrow in order to fully defease the bonds.
Questions, comments?
I appreciate that last explanation.
I understand that, you always want to try to cast a broad net, but looking at the estimates, the capital markets sure seem like a more economical way in being a good steward of tax dollars approach to go.
And the question was posed to me by the judge earlier, can we do both? The issue with that is you have sunk cost in the capital markets deal because we have to pay to get the county rated. So, at $8 million roughly in anticipated borrowing, that fee is going to be about $19,000.
So, we would assume that our rating would be better than the state's rating, or can we not use the state's rating since we're sub-efficient to state?
You can't.
Okay.
It's not like schools from that aspect. And you're going to be better than the state.
Okay.
So you're going to be
Well, we knew that.
likely AA1, potentially AAA, but I think maybe the high concentration of Toyota in the employment base may be something that they'll reduce the rating. But you're going to be high investment grade.
When do you think you'd have to push the button to get, you said it's about a $19,000 expenditure to get that rating. When do you think you would have to push the button to get that rating?
We're scheduled for DLG on June 8th. So I don't need that for DLG, but process-wise, we would want to start probably toward the end of the month to notify Moody's that we're going to be seeking a credit rating from them. We'll put together a packet, send it to them. They'll schedule a call with us. We'll have it, and then they'll take it to committee and return us a rating.
How long is that rating good for?
For the term of the bonds.
Okay, just for the bonds.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if you go back, you go to issue more debt, we'd go through the process again.
Okay.
And they would basically reaffirm whatever the rating is based upon the financial conditions of the county.
In the estimated bank rate, when I asked you that question, could we do both? Just trying to cast a broad net and then also give opportunities to local lenders or such. If we went the bank rate direction, you just send out we'd post it in the paper, but we'd also hand deliver it to the local banks?
We would email, basically everybody would just email for the bond anticipation notes. And a request for proposal from them, and then give
Could
them
we
a
ask
date
them?
and time certain.
Could we email them and ask them all, like, hey, could you get us an estimate or an offer within a week? Is that too big a turnaround, too quick a turnaround, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Would 2 weeks be too much or too little?
They could probably do it in 2 weeks. The question becomes, will they want to?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just trying to lay everything out on the table and cast as wide a net as possible.
So if we went the capital markets route, which is 3% plus or minus at this point, and then you talked about setting up an escrow account so that we could shift money if we had it into this, would that account draw any interest, or is that just going to
Yes.
sit there?
It would. We would actually run the calculation, and in order to fully defease the bonds, you have to put enough cash in there to pay the remaining payments.
But it's only going to get paid out
Right, each year.
monthly, yearly, right?
Semi-annually. Right.
Semi-annually.
Well, we would run the calculation to determine, okay, what can we invest this in? But let's say we decide to establish the escrow at year 5. Okay, what 5-year investment can we purchase that will create enough return on X amount of dollars to have enough to pay it off at year 10? And it would sit there.
And if there was money left in that escrow account, it would come back to us, correct?
Yeah. But
Okay.
we're gonna
It's not, I mean, it's not like,
know what the investment rate is, and it'll be fixed. That's the only way we can really do it, because
Okay.
it can't be a guess.
yeah.
So the capital rate would be a fixed rate?
Yes, the capital market rate is a fixed rate
For the duration of the,
for the entire
Term.
term.
And that's the reason they want to keep the duration.
Right.
They don't, yeah.
It's a bit of security for the investor, much like if you go to the bank and buy a 7-day CD versus a 5-year CD, you're gonna get a better rate on the 5-year because it protects their investment.
Well, I'll make a comment. I think it's a good idea to go this route with the capital markets. And I think if you want to talk to some banks, and I'm not opposed to that, but I think if we tell them the rates we're looking at, it'll be a pretty quick conversation.
And if you recall, Judge, we did send the bond anticipation note out to all the locals, and we didn't have great interest in responding to that.
On theirs, so like if our deposits have to be collateralized
Yes.
at the bank, so does that restrict any type of money flow for them if we borrowed money from them? Do you see what I'm asking?
No.
So the rules are when we have your governmental deposits in the bank, they're collateralized, right? So
Right.
they're guaranteed essentially.
Mhm.
So are there any rules in the banking industry that when the governmental entity borrows from the bank that are, no? Okay.
Yeah, it's no.
Okay.
any other questions or comments? And would there be a motion for one or the other or such?
I'm not opposed to making a motion to look at getting rated and seeing, I know it's a process. I think rates are probably continually going up as we speak, is my guess, but I think we ought to start this process of looking at the capital markets and what it's going to cost. So I'd make a motion to start it.
Is that what we need to do first, is get the rating done first?
Well, I think the motion would be to move forward with the recommendation of getting rated and pursuing financing through the capital markets.
Yes.
Which is going to be the lowest.
It's going to be the cheapest rate.
And one other comment or maybe question, I don't know which one, I don't know how it's going to come out, but so we look 5 years into this and we say, hey, we really don't have the money because the economy's changed.
Right.
We're probably still at the best spot with this lowest interest rate. I mean, the hope is that a few years into this, we do have the cash and we could set up that escrow account. But that may not happen.
Right.
So we're at the lowest place we can be, it looks like to me.
Oh, I think historically, that's probably a true statement. For a long time, rates,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll second that motion.
Got a motion, we got a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Just reminding everybody of the timeline. The actual bids for this project will be in the paper actually on the 16th.
This month?
This month.
Cool.
And there will be a pre-bid meeting, I think, on June 6th. And then I think on the 20th is the date at 2 o'clock that we are going to have the bids submitted. And this has been sent out to the newspaper. And then the bids will also go through the Branch Carroll playing room, and it'll be widely distributed, across the state. I hope that we have several bids back on this.
When did you say this would be about?
June 20th, 2 o'clock. Pre-bid meeting, June 6th, 2 o'clock. Right here, same bat channel, same bat time. Pow. Kapow. Boom. Thank you, RJ.
Thank you, Judge.
Have a splendid day. Michelle Carlisle, Amen House. How are you, Michelle?
How are you?
Michelle's wheels are always turning,
Always, always.
and we appreciate what you do for the community. I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Well, leading right into that, what we do only works with the support of our community. So I'm always here to ask for something. You guys know that when you see me on the agenda. Hopefully today's an easy ask. As you guys know, the Amen House already has a partnership with Central Kentucky Growers where we are using part of their building to store food. Our canned goods get stored out there, and that partnership has gone for a couple years now. Zeldin Angel is not with us today, but everything that we've proposed to you guys have been ran through Central Kentucky Growers. They are comfortable with it to the point that they've told us exactly where they would like for us to put things if this is approved. So rewinding just a little bit, started talking with Jared Holland probably a year ago about the inflow of donations, textile donations, clothing donations that come through the Amen House, and the problem with the overflow. So we have a thriving thrift store. Things are going really, really well. But as is kind of the trend at any thrift store, any clothing donation across our nation, about 20% of what gets donated and dropped off to us is exactly what we need in the moment we need it. And about 80% of that is not. It is either below our standards, because if it doesn't look like it came from a department store, it's not going to hang on our racks. So if there's a stain or a rip or it's out of style or for a magnitude of reasons, things don't get hung there, they don't get back out into our community. So much like compost was a problem a while ago, we've got that one figured out. The clothing and the excess that ultimately could end up in the landfill has been a problem that we've been looking at trying to solve. And I think we have gotten there. But the Amen House really doesn't have the space yet to navigate the logistics of it. So we have established a partnership with a textile recycler. So not only are we going to be able to divert it from the landfill, but the Amen House is actually going to make money off of this partnership. We are going to sell the clothing that we can't use, that's not good for our community, and they are actually going to pick it up. We have to have that pickup available to them as a full tractor trailer load. The recycling center shut down here in town, and because of that, we were able to get in on their surplus auction. So we have purchased a baler. We have not purchased the shipping container yet because we need approval for somewhere to sit it. But that is our plan, is to alongside that go ahead and purchase a shipping container so we can stage those recycled bales until we have enough volume for the company to come pick it up and then circle again and then fill it and go. So the real request here today is for us to be able to put that baler out at Central Kentucky Growers Building, and then on the outside of the building to set that shipping container so that we can so that we can make this work. Hopefully you got that last week before your work session, and this isn't new news to you. But our hope is that you guys would be comfortable with that, and we can get moving on this.
And a tractor trailer would net, a tractor trailer full of recycled, baled textiles would net you all about $6,000.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
you're taking something from the landfill, making it a usable commodity, possibly, recycling it, and using those funds to help feed Georgetown, Scott County.
You understand it perfectly.
This is a no-brainer, and would there be a motion to approve this?
How long does it take to get a whole tractor trailer full of textiles?
We thought before the baler that we could probably do it in about a month. With the baler, that's going to change things. So we're thinking probably 6 to 8 weeks now that it's all compacted. They were going to pay 3 cents if it was bagged in trash bags. Then the baler became available. That's going to shift it to roughly right now about 16 cents a pound. So we haven't done this yet. But we're thinking about every 6 to 8 weeks.
You'll fill a tractor trailer?
We will fill a tractor trailer. We're moving about 150 bags a week out right now.
Michelle,
yeah.
Is there a tow motor out there, a forklift that?
Yes, that's
the
that
other
is our
piece
partnership with Central
with
Kentucky
Zeldin
Growers.
and them, and that's the
Yes,
other
because
piece.
that's why that piece is so
If you
awesome.
didn't have that partnership, then you couldn't move the bales as easily.
Well, and quite honestly, like the dock, like the tractor trailer will be able to dock, because we've kind of talked through all of that. Because we want to make sure we're also not in their way and impeding what they're trying to accomplish out there. Because it's a different partnership before, because really we've been using it off season for them is kind of when we need it. But Zeldin has been nothing. So I keep looking at Don. Don is on my board of directors and works closely with Zeldin getting all of this coordinated. But no, I mean, it's going to be the ideal facility for us to be able to do that and quite honestly do it safely. But yeah.
So you've even got a spot for the container picked out?
Yes, so Zeldin has kind of led the charge on exactly where to fit that. Apparently there's several bays out there that a tractor trailer can come in, and one of them, the mechanisms to dock and level and all of that stuff doesn't work right now. So that's the one he wants us to use to set the shipping container along where that would go, leaving 2 bays that are fully operational for his stuff to go.
Motion for Mr. Jones. Second for Mr. Hostetler. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Awesome.
You're in business now. One other update for the court. You know, I got an email, forwarded it to you, related to our community block development grant and for the Amen House, the kitchen essentially, and those questions have been answered.
Yes.
I'm always optimistic when we get questions. And very hopeful.
Bluegrass Ad said the same thing. I point blank asked them yesterday.
Yeah.
I was like, these questions are a good thing, right?
So, you know, we have partnered on a grant application. There's no match from us, but she needed a governmental entity to help navigate this, and the Amen House. And there's been several questions that were asked and trying to fill it out and flesh it out. And it'd be fantastic if those funds become available. So we'll cross our fingers and maybe say a few prayers.
Most definitely. All my wheels are turning like crazy since yesterday.
Thanks for all the good work that you do.
Thank you so much.
I'd just like to thank her publicly because this is rare in our state to do textile recycling. And yes, she may have called me a year ago, but I wasn't getting the job done. I was just in her way. So very thankful that she got this done because we are charged to divert things from landfills, and we're meeting our goal with our state solid waste plan.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jared. Electrical inspection fees. You have the proposed new fees. Thank you all again for all you do. And Rick, you came by this morning and had a couple questions. Could you ask Don to?
I do, and I didn't get this till late last night, or I would have called you, and I was afraid it was too late. And I was glad to see you come in.
Well, first I want to apologize for being late getting up here. I was having a senior moment this morning.
Uh-oh.
And people was in the office. We was dealing with the situation, and plumb forgot.
Well, you're not late.
You're not late. You're just in time.
Yeah, just in time. So. I didn't want the principal to get after me this morning.
Nope. You've not had enough tardies to get detention, so we'll leave it at that. Rick, go ahead.
Well, Don, I was just I was going back over this last night, and trying to figure out how to put this question concisely. One of the I don't see any problem personally. I don't know how the rest of the court feels on the permit fees, ticking them up, and the rescheduling of the apartments that you've done on your fee schedule for the apartment buildings. But I got to thinking about in the commercial work up to 30,000, or you're wanting to change. Is that the one you're wanting to change to?
Anything over 30,000 now, we charge 1% regardless. The maximum number is still 1%. And it seemed like probably 80%, maybe even higher than that, of our work that we do is less than $1 million. And I mean, on the electrical. So we checked with about 8 other different counties in the state, and it seemed like we're probably in the middle or one of the lowest as far as percentage on the commercial end. And most of them are 1.25 or 1.5, even some of them 1 3/4, and states 2%. So I thought that that would be one good place that we could see some extra revenue is on the commercial end. So,
right. Well, here's my question. I lost the right piece of paper, but I found it. So currently, with no changes, the figure I was looking at, you want to go to 1.25 from 1%, but you've added in here that you wanted to include the light fixtures, et cetera, whether it's bought by the owner or not. And so there's
we've always done that. Regardless, it's 1%, whether the contractor furnishes the equipment, the light fixture, the gear and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Or if the owner purchases it, it's still 1%. So in a lot of the cases that the owner will pay that 1% of the cost of the equipment, and then the contractor will pay whatever his contract price was. But it's still 1% of the total cost.
Okay, well, that's when you added that in, or I thought it was an addition. I thought that meant that you weren't getting that before.
No, we've always got that. I mean,
okay, then I misunderstood that. Remember, okay, so because I thought, heck, if you hadn't been, because well, I'm sure the school's doing it. I'm sure that the owner is. They're direct purchasing things to knock off the taxes and other deals. Which those are big packages. That's probably $500,000 lighting package down there, or maybe more. But you're getting that.
Yeah, normally we'll go through.
I didn't think you were the way this was worded.
We usually go through the contractor, and he'll arrange that fee from the owner on the equipment stuff, and we don't deal with the owner.
Got you. Well, I thought that the way this was worded, you weren't getting that, and then I was going to say, if you were to get it now, that would be an increase in itself, but you're already getting that.
Sure, we're already getting that, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you, Don. That clarifies it for me.
Questions or other comments?
And these, so I think you answered my question about comparing rates in other counties.
Yeah.
As always, low or?
Yeah, we're probably right in the middle. But then on some things, we may be just a tad higher, and then other things, like on this commercial, we're on the lower end of that middle range. And that's probably one of our single biggest revenues we have is on commercial.
How much additional revenue do you think it generates on an average year?
I'd say based on the way construction is right now, this .25 will probably bring us in another $30,000, $40,000. The fees will bring us in about $8,000, and then the solar and the generator. We did about 50 solars last year, and we only charged $45, and we should be charging more than that because we spend a lot of time on these projects. So that should bring us in another $7,000 or $8,000 more dollars just by bumping that up to $250 just across the board. So.
Well, there is I had one other thought as well, and it's kind of a concern, but it's a targeted application. For example, on a school such as Scott County High School,
right.
and I'm sure over time we're going to build more schools in Scott County. When we apply that rate, that just it costs more for the taxpayer because it's done on
Yes.
a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
That part kind of concerns me because it's just raising that cost. The same taxpayers are paying it all, and I don't know how to solve that other than if you targeted that type of project. But most of the things you're talking about, like you were talking about the solar and stuff, that's all private.
Yes, it is.
Right, and so, but you still deserve, you're spending time, we deserve to be compensated for that. But I am concerned about on these big school projects or public projects, like we're gonna be doing these generators, and that's gonna be a fair amount of money, and then if we apply this 1.25%, that's gonna, again, that increases our cost.
It's our department.
Well, I'm just looking at this.
Usually you don't charge the county for inspections, though. Do you?
We charge unless the judge tells us not to.
I know you've done some in Stamping Ground and go.
Yeah.
Some inspection or two.
Well, I'm just trying to throw that out there.
So let me ask you this, Rick. Talking about a new school, and you said a $500,000 lighting package. That's just the pack. That's not.
But it's already included. I didn't think it was the way this was worded.
But what I was just going to say is that's really, in the scheme of things, it's a $100 million project, and it's $5,000 just the fee. So it's a,
it's just more taxpayer dollars. Don't forget.
Yeah. No, I agree, but somebody's got to approve
We
it.
get it back.
Yeah.
Comes back to us.
Does it go back to the taxpayers and get in their pocket? Okay. I'm just looking at that.
I see what you're saying.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So is there a scenario where you exempt?
That's
local
what I'm
government?
asking.
Yeah, where
for
you exempt
thoughts
local
on.
government.
Like I say, when the judge talked earlier about for the Amen House, it's a no-brainer. Well, I've been accused of not having any brains, but I was just thinking about
Not
this
by
late
me,
last
Rick.
night.
Don, do you know how other communities handle their own governmental inspections?
Well, there's 120 counties in the state of Kentucky, and probably I'd say less than 20% of them is government controlled.
Well, I guess
the rest of them are private.
Wrong question. I didn't ask it right. On those that are governmental controlled, do you know have you all ever had discussions on whether they charge their own governmental entities fees for inspection?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, that's.
No, I have no idea.
Do we need to get more research on that and come back to that about exempting city, county government agencies from having to pay the fee? and
Rick
just-
thinks so.
I mean, I'm asking.
Is that a second?
Yeah, we can approve the table,
Yeah.
get more research about exempting.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to write an ordinance on that anyway, wouldn't you?
That's why we got the county attorney here, Mr. Jones.
Should we draw an ordinance on it? Yeah, I guess, yeah.
We'd have to amend the ordinance of the local, the interlocal for electrical inspection.
Well, Rick, I kind of look at it like this too, though. If we did not charge, we're going to pay it, right? Because we still got to have people go out and do the inspections, and it's a fee. So then we're picking it up, which is fine.
Well,
we just
But when
But when we get the money back, the fees he's talking about, we get that back. They bring us the money every
Right.
week.
right, but we're paying people to go and do a job.
Right.
So if we're not charging for it, we're going to pay for it essentially, or they're going to have to raise other fees to cover those costs.
Right. Well, what I was driving at is I was thinking about like a school, and we're always going to be doing that. And I go back to my earlier statement. As Don is well laid out, we deserve to be compensated for this, even the new school. I just thought about that little bit of an increase as a direct hit back to the taxpayers because that's who's going to pay it. But it's not that much, like you said, but it's, a few bucks is a few bucks in my pocket.
I don't know if it's actually increasing fees just to have more revenue, or if it's actually covering costs.
I
And if
agree
it's
with
covering
that.
costs, which I think it is.
I agree
then
with that.
We're paying the Board of Education's fees by having to pay these employees to go out and do it. It's kind of, I know where you're coming from, but I don't know if it really, I think taxpayers are still paying for it somewhere. Either paying us
That's
taxes
true.
or paying them.
True.
Would there be a motion?
One more comment.
Oh, yes, sir.
I work in all the counties around, so I see all the fees. And what Don's got laid out is pretty decent fee. It's not extravagant, it's not low. He's right, it's in the middle. And they do a good job for us, so I think it's justified.
Well, thanks for that insight.
But also, I'm gonna have to abstain from the vote because this does affect me in my business, so
No.
I would feel,
I think it's wise.
I would feel different about it, so.
Motion for Mr. Livingston. Second. Other question?
Not a question. We don't, maybe I need to abstain as well, but I didn't think about it. We don't currently have any, my company doesn't currently have anything in Scott County, but hopefully we will in the future.
In 2019, you did recuse.
So I probably better do the same.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, and we have two recusals, and then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. We got enough to,
And this will go into effect in the new budget year, which be July 1.
yeah.
And we'll send notices out to all of our contractors that we bill, and to get the word of the mouth out there that there's going to be, and like I said, probably 75% of our inspections are residential, and outside of the $10 increase on their fee, that's about the only thing that's hitting residential outside of solar panels. And so they're not going to get hit with the $10 fee, maybe at the most.
Thank you, Don.
All right.
Appreciate your time. Don't be tardy again, though. County attorney fee. County attorney new hire, not a fee.
Hopefully this is pretty minor. We're proposing to bring on a summer intern who would start Monday and be there until June the 8th. Her name's Logan Sawyer. She's a Georgetown College graduate. Just finished her first year of law school at Kansas. She's been an intern with us before. We're proposing to pay her $10 an hour. Just asking you all to approve that.
What day?
You said June 8th.
Yeah.
She will start May 15th, which is this coming Monday, and then she'll be there like 4 weeks until June 8th, or less than that, so not really.
Motion.
Second for Mr. Jones.
Sounds like you're getting a bargain.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That moves us on to EMS new hires. Mr. Runyon, how are you?
Doing well, Judge. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Magistrate Judge, good morning. We have a recommendation this morning for Mr. Alex Tomas. He's been an EMT for about 3 years. He's currently in paramedic school and will be graduating in July. So it'll be a good addition for us. We want to start him on or after June 1st at full-time EMT rate of $12.47 an hour.
Motion? Second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we will talk about EMS proposed service fee adjustment.
Chris, was that just one person?
Yes.
You all received this proposal. Questions or comments related to that as proposed? Would there be a motion? Motion? Second? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. JR?
Yes, sir.
Chris, you're not going anywhere. I was going to ask something in new business.
Okay.
So, thank you. Come on up, JR. Road Department new hire.
Along with Jeff Mudrack,
We took applications for an equipment operator, labor, and we have chosen, with the court's approval, Colton Dixon, $16.55 per hour, full-time.
Questions or comments?
What's that do for your staffing? You still looking for some folks?
Yes. I still have a mechanic position and 3 equipment operators.
Wow.
So, we got a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. While JR is here, I would like to propose that between now and Monday's work session, try to get a little bit more data, but the mechanic position is so critical at the road department. And we've had this posted for a few weeks, several weeks.
Yeah, 5-6 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Jeff to give us some data about maybe adjusting that mechanic pay to try to see. I mean, we have to do something. And would you like to comment on it, JR?
Yes. The thing about the road department, it's totally different from working in a dealership where you work with 2 different lines of vehicles or makes or whatever. We work on anything from backhoes, end loaders, fire trucks, ambulances. So you got to be pretty diverse. And I think any of the department's heads will agree that how critical it is to keep their vehicles on the road and what a big asset it is to have our own mechanics and not depend on a dealership to wait 3 weeks to get a vehicle in or whatever. And it's important that we have good quality help.
So Jeff's at a training today along with Kara, and on Monday, I'll send him an email today asking him if Monday morning he could try to grab some additional information about comparator salaries for mechanics, just because we have to.
Yeah. I think we've targeted in other departments in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, when you got this kind of an issue, we're probably going to have to target something in the future.
Yes, sir. We'll try to tackle that and have more information on Monday afternoon.
We appreciate that.
No, thank you. Now, JR has a de-icing salt bid, a paving material bid. Would you present that information?
Yes, we had 3 bids on salt, and Cargill de-icing come in the lowest at $105.48 per ton. That is an increase of $3.76 from last year, which is related to trucking costs, fuel, and all that. So I would like to recommend Cargill as our salt supplier for the upcoming budget year.
Motion. Second, Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. Did we have quite a bit left over from last year, or did we run out?
I have quite a bit left over.
I thought we did.
But salt does not go bad, so, and you can't take a gamble that we're not going to bid it out and we could have a terrible winter next year, so we got to cover our bases. And especially we supply the school system, we supply Mallard Point, Sadieville, so it's important that we have a good salt supply.
Any other questions? So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next would be the paving materials.
Okay, we bid out the paving materials. It remained the same as it was last year at $75.20 for base, which is the first coat, $79 per ton for surface. So we only had 1 bidder.
Hamilton Hinkle. Question?
Motion.
Motion. Second for Mr. Corman. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
And we have one more bid on the labor of installing this, which we will put out today. And you got to bid the material out first in case 2 or 3 people bid on the put down. and they'll know where to get it. So we'll put that out today, and we'll be coming back in about 2 weeks' time.
All right.
Thank y'all very much.
No, thank you. Now, I think we're going to table the fire department bid exhaust system. We're going to table that, let John do a little bit more research, his team, and then bring this back on the 25th. But how many bids did we receive?
2.
We
Very
received
close. He just needs more time to review them.
to look at the details. There's a lot to that in there, John.
They were boxes, yeah.
So,
Was there timelines on those bids?
pardon?
Timelines on those bids? Time sensitive, you know?
Is there?
It'll be on the next agenda.
But
Yeah, we have 2 years for that grant, to complete the grant.
Well, what about the people that bid it? You know, a lot of times they'll turn in a bid and say it's only good for a week, or,
Right.
I just don't want you
was
to.
there any timeline on
I
that?
didn't see anything. Did you say something? I didn't. Yeah. But I'd say because we'll definitely be ready by Thursday, next court meeting, to bring that back. And I mean, I'll double check today, but I'm pretty sure. we're good
So
with that.
this question is for both, I guess, Chris and you, but really more for Chris. Evidently, there's some issues with the exhaust system at Broadway, and what was presented to me was about a $15,000 total fix, $7,500 from us, and they were wanting to go ahead and get that done. I think we need to do that. You know, it just has that been brought to you all?
It has, yes, Judge. But it was presented a little differently, so.
Okay.
They wanted us to pay the whole $15,000 because they said they'd already paid 50% of our budget. And so they felt like that we should pay the total.
We would pay it all, and then they would get billed half.
Yeah. So we were waiting
Same
for
thing.
Yeah.
new budget cycle to.
Well, between Stacy and Michelle and I and you, let's look at if, you know, even if we said yes, they wouldn't be able to fix it before July 1 probably. You know, I'm just throwing that out. But let's make sure we don't let that slip off the table, and make sure I'll do a follow-up call, and then if we need to add that to our budget on Monday, we will. And then while you're standing there, I'll turn John loose. John's still got one other thing, but Chris, we talked about the engine replacement question on that one ambulance. And the more I think about it and talking with JR, I don't think we'd ever say it's not good to have that backup, even though, you know, and let's say in a year, if we do spend $25,000 to put a new engine in it, but let's say in a year we haven't used it and we have better backups, I think we could sell it and recoup that or repurpose it for another agency. I didn't see Mike's eyes go up, but usually they do when we're talking about repurposing ambulances for. But I just, as you know, getting hit by a UPS truck, transmissions going out. You know, I know you're trying to be a good steward of tax dollars, but on the other hand, just knowing that how many miles they get and how much, I think I'm going to recommend to the court that we consider going on and doing that. And that'll be another conversation for where do we pull the money from. But I just think it's, I don't want to ever say, dang, I wish we had that. You know, and in a year, if we haven't used it, but the way things are going, it's not bad to have. And it's the oldest in the fleet.
Correct.
It's the old van style front end.
It's an 07 or 06. Year was that? 07, yeah. It's old.
Would it be around 25,000, JR, you think? Yeah. But let's on Monday this week talk about where we can look at that money, because that's another thing that wouldn't be billed after July 1 either. So thank you. Fire department purchase update. I am asking and recommending to the court, along with the budget committee, I shared, a proposed fire apparatus plan, and we have 2 apparatus on order as we speak.
Correct.
Back in the fall, we elected not to pay any money because the delivery time on these apparatus are not until 25. One possibly September, the other December of 25. So we were, we had decided not to. But with the budget committee request from the fire department, let's remind everybody what we're replacing with the 2 on order. A 1999 ladder truck.
Correct. Yes.
And the other is a
2005 pumper.
So a 2005 pumper. So that's what we've got on order, already ordered, and that's what we're replacing. I'm proposing to go on and pay for that pumper out of this year's budget. We had the money to pay for both, but I'm just proposing to pay for one. We're going to recognize a savings of about $41,000.
$42,250.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Now, the next item on the plan in 23-24, next year's budget, we would not allocate any money to pay for any apparatus in next year's budget, but we would propose to the court to approve to order 2 additional pumpers. The 2 additional would replace another 05 and another 07. The build out time on that is 28 months. So, we're just getting ourselves in a queue. Our estimate for those 2 would be around $1 million each, right?
Correct.
And then in the 24-25 budget, we would propose allocating funds to pay for those 2 pumpers, and we'd get a bigger rebate on those 2 if we went on and paid in 24-25 budget. Now, we'd also propose in that 24-25 timeline to order 1 more pumper, and that would replace the last 07. That would replace the last 07 front line. All of these are front line apparatus. And the issues we run into continue is you just can't get parts anymore. And it continues to be a maintenance, and your maintenance issues go up. And then 25, 26, in December of 25, we will get that ladder truck, and we will pay for that ladder truck. We'll put the money in the budget 25, 26 for the ladder truck. And then 26, 27, we would allocate that last amount of funds, approximately $1 million, to pay for that 07 replacement. Now, questions?
The motion is actually just to.
Yes. The only motion is to go ahead and authorize the payment on the pumper that we have ordered. And the money's already in the budget.
And the only reason we're voting is initially we voted to not take the
All right.
discount.
So we have a motion on the table, a second. Any other questions or comments?
So in 24, you order 2 more pumpers? Did I get that right?
Yes. 24, 25, we'd order 2 more. And give that to Rob. Rob, you can keep that.
I will, yeah.
No, David.
I did.
David and then Rick seconded. And then any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Any questions about the plan? And, should we sometime soon approve that plan, I guess?
I think it's a great plan.
Yeah.
Keep them going.
It stages it out, and we'll talk. Yeah. I've got the same kind of, but we know the plan. It doesn't happen unless you put it in the budget, and then.
Also, he'll come back with the contract for you to vote on.
Yeah, he'll come back for the actual contract price and the order. So I just wanted to throw that out. Now, it's probably best that we just we know the plan. We're going to execute the plan. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Next, I'd like to call on Jella Broyles. Jella Broyles, thank you for being here. And the Budget Committee has been working very hard. We have shared a draft that we're going to have a special called work session on Monday, 3:30. But through the conversations with the Budget Committee about a request from Jella Broyles back in earlier this year, we raised salaries, but at the same time we reduced staffing so we wouldn't go over budget. And Jella Broyles' request is a return to that 30 full-time deputy status for next year's budget. In conversations in the Budget Committee, we cannot come to complete consensus, so we wanted to ask for input from the entire court, and I thought it was appropriate to have Jella Broyles come and speak to the entire court firsthand, and then he couldn't be here on Monday because of previous appointment conflict. So Jella Broyles, I'll turn it over to you. I hope I've laid it out there.
Yeah, perfectly, Judge. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me come to the regularly scheduled meeting today. We are doing everything that we were doing 2 or 3 years ago when we had the 2 additional positions added to our complement of staff down there. We're doing more than that now. We're doing the Isaiah House assessments, which has added some work to the floor staff. The floor staff are the ones that get those scheduled. The floor staff are the ones that interact with the Isaiah House and with the inmate and the scheduling of these. We're doing more Zoom court appearances. So we're doing more than what we were doing a few years ago, but yet doing the same things that we were doing a few years ago. We're sending the road crew out, which requires at least part of the time for a full-time deputy to go out with the road crew. My goal is to try to send a part-timer out if we have an experienced part-timer to go out with the road crew. That's not always a possibility, so we have to pull floor or staff off the floor in order to make that happen. Our population down there, although it's not as high as it was pre-COVID, it's still pretty high. It's 35-40% above capacity, and you know that fluctuates day in and day out. It can be up one day, it can be back down the other. I'm sorry, go ahead, Judge.
You know, we look at that every day as well, and you know, today 125 I think was, you know, so you know, for a long time we were right there around 100.
That's right.
And the last 2 weeks it's slipped back up a little bit.
That's right, and that's with us housing 9 of our inmates kind of on an extended basis in other county facilities, and 2 of our inmates being at other counties for court appearances. Okay. So we've got 11 out of our facility that could, 2 of them for sure are coming back, but 11 that potentially could be in our facility.
Is any of that related to requests from judges for court dates anticipating? Yes. So that climb is a little bit attributed to that, the judge's request.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the 2 that are out that are coming back. No, so the CODAs, the court order to appears, they caused us to spike last week, but we're past that this week. So we're at a more stable number this week. Last week we were in the low 130s. That was due at least partially because of the CODAs, the court order to appears that the sheriff's office has to go get and bring to us.
You know, we've all discussed, you know, we've gotten 3 contracts back, Marion, Oldham, and Clark. You ever gotten anything back from Laurel?
No, I have touched base with the jailer down there. He said they're working on an expansion of their facility, and that he's just extremely busy. To touch base with him, he's trying to look at it and get it kind of worked out.
I'll let you continue.
He's definitely still on board with helping us out in that capacity, though.
Okay.
So the population is one thing that we can look at to see how busy we are compared to a few years ago. But another metric to use is the actual bookings that we do in the facility. And the booking numbers are reflective, or a good metric to use, I should say, because that takes a lot of work to book these individuals in. and it is reflective of how busy we are, as opposed to just going by population, because the judges let out quite a few of the arrests that come in. So the population is a good gauge to go by, but it's not a full-scale, complete look at what we do. The bookings have gone up tremendously for us as well. And so I don't see the reasoning. When we talked about this a few months ago, in order to get the 28-cent raise for us to help us out, and it has helped us out as far as getting applications, we're fully staffed right now -1, but we've got several applications in that we're interviewing, in the process of interviewing. I think that position is going to be filled next week.
Could I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Just hate to interrupt, but
Yeah.
fully staffed right now -1, because I'm trying to go back to our conversation. Was that 24 people?
It's 25.
25.
Yeah, so 26 is what we agreed to lower it to from 30
Okay.
a few months ago. So basically, and in my eyes, that was kind of a temporary measure to get us through the end of the current budget cycle that we're in, to make sure that we didn't go over our budget or anything like that. So I didn't see that as a permanent change to our staffing.
Have you, on Tuesday, I checked with Kara, and she thought you had 24 full-time, but maybe had one on the...
We've got 25.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we've got 25 currently. One position is open, and again, I've got several applications. We're in so much better shape now than we were 3, 4, 5 months ago as far as getting applications, getting quality applications, and so really the 28 cents really did help quite a
past that
bit.
threshold of past $17
Yes.
an hour.
Yeah, I think perception-wise, I think that's helped us out tremendously as far as attracting more candidates.
Good.
So, anyway, but I really saw that as a temporary measure to help us get through the current budget cycle, and that we would return to that.
But Jailer, I think that there are those of us that did not see it as a temporary measure, because if it's a temporary measure, then the trade-off was we eliminate the positions so that they don't get filled, so we have the additional money to pay the 28 cents. So if it's a temporary measure, then we take the 28 cents back and give you the 4 positions. And I'm being facetious. I'm not saying that's what I want to do. But there are those of us that don't believe that we didn't, well, I actually voted against it because I disagreed with doing that, because we talked about this in a meeting at CAECO yesterday about looking out toward the future as to what's going to happen. And we sat up here that day and said, they're going to come back and ask for additional staff. Why cut the staff right now to give 28 when we know that there's going to be the request for the additional staff, and it's actually come a lot sooner than I think some of us have anticipated. The other thing too is the talk of the training incentive. That was anticipated without knowing that there were additional staff requests. So now you're talking about 4 additional staff, a training incentive, and it just explodes what we're doing. And so I think as a safe measure from a budgetary standpoint, I don't know that you can have both, in my opinion. And I think that's what we're wrestling with on the budget committee.
So the 4 positions, they equate to about $280,000 in savings out of our budget every year. The 28-cent raise that we got is about 25.
How do the 4 positions save you $280,000?
My understanding is that if you can basically double the salary of an individual to include their benefits.
So that's correct.
So that would mean each position is about $70,000.
On Monday, I will have Jeff, because Jeff's at a training, be able to provide.
I won't be able to be here Monday because of a prior engagement.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'll share with everybody the cost of per position, an estimate of what the 4 would be.
But if we're starting people at $17 an hour, that's going to be about $35,000 a year. You double that, that's $70,000 per employee. Times 4 is $280,000 a year.
Plus the training incentive.
Yeah, how much?
And it's not a savings; it's a cost. It's a cost, and so.
But it's a savings if we don't have those positions. It's
if we don't have those 4, that's correct. Yeah, but then you also add the incentive on top of it, and so when we talked about that, I don't think the intent was, the intent of the incentive is to keep people, keep our brightest and best at the jail. And so we're adding on that cost. I don't even remember what that total cost was going to be.
I don't have the.
It's a few line items in a budget.
And what is the incentive per year?
Well, what we had talked about, Jailer, and we talked in our budget meeting with you, the incentive would be, with you all doing 40 hours required and going to 50, doing 10 more at your discretion. The topic was we'd give those employees that complete that training $1,000 training incentive, just like we were discussing 150 hours of training for EMS, they would get 3,000. They're doing 3 times the amount. That was the trying to be equitable. And then, the state mandated sheriff and fire that training that's there. What we were just trying to do was have some equity and also to try to retain employees, and incentivize the training. So that was that. And I do think I have a dollar amount here that I can share. The EMS, the jail training incentive we were looking at $42,375 total. And then we've discussed, we had some pay compression issues at the detention center, and that's about $26,887. And regardless, in my opinion, that compression has to be fixed, in my opinion.
So does that mean, Judge, for the additional 4 positions that I'd like reinstated, it's $4,000 more dollars?
No.
For the incentive?
Well, he had 28. Well, he figured with 28 staff on that training incentive.
So the 2 additional that I'm asking for, is that $2,000 additional incentive money?
But you're not asking for 2 additional, you're asking for 4, because we have you at 20. He based it on 28.
It was based, what Jeff based it on was 28.
If there was a compromise.
If there was a compromise.
So, can I jump in here?
You can jump in with 2 feet, Rick Hostetter.
Well, I'm looking at this item 7, which you already brought it up, Jailer, about the overtime. And I'm looking all through that. Is it possible to Jeff to actually run the numbers, because he states in here, I'm sure it's accurate, but there's no numbers. The additional overtime hours will result this fiscal year in the highest amount of overtime hours since he's been jailer, and additionally, it's going to result in the county having to pay into retirement for some of our part-timers that have been working more than their monthly allotment, which is, I think, 99 hours. And
so
my thoughts go.
And Jeff did not share that same concern about the part-timers, but I can ask for confirmation.
I mean, can we find those numbers?
Yes.
Because that's what happened with the fire department. I mean, those were huge numbers, and that prompted us to hire 3 new people.
I think our treasurer, can you confirm that after you all looked at that concern was not there with the part-timers?
That's not a concern. And primarily, the only reason why one of the part-timers currently is paying into retirement is because she's kind of, I think she's flip-flopped back and forth from full-time to part-time. Once you're full-time, you're paying into retirement. If you go part-time, you're still paying into retirement. You can't back that out. And it does take a very, very long time for the retirement, usually within 18 to 24 months to even catch if there is someone that has worked so much overtime in order for there to be a contribution into a retirement system.
But to your request, I'll ask Jeff to confirm the overtime and
part of it sounds like that the staff that's there, including the part-timers, are struggling. I know in my world, we don't find a whole lot of employees out there, so I have to count on my regular crew. And if we're staying late, it's overtime. It's hard on them. I'm assuming that's the same problem down there. And the other thing, the way I'm seeing it, is he has brought these programs back, which we all wanted, and it's beneficial. They're back out on the road. They're back out on the road crews with the trash, and I think they help in other ways. And that's probably, is that going to pick up this summer? Because it used to, you were helping Parks and Rec, and is that still?
That's right. So currently, we're helping out the Housing Authority every week, and we're helping out Parks and Recreation every week. And I've already spoken to Public Works about, Georgetown Public Works, about connecting back up with them for them to utilize us on a weekly basis also.
Which is always something that I've heard various ones of us always wanting that to come back. So that, to me, that's just more pressure on the staff that he has. And he was doing it with 30 before, and I understand why we reduced it. Personally speaking, my expectation is that they were going to have to come back. I saw that as one of those targeted, like I talked about earlier, about the maintenance position for JR. I saw that as, that's the way I saw it. We targeted trying to help figure out how to get you, and you've already said, it sounds like, that you're getting more applications. Mm-hmm. People are more positive. I actually thought 28 cents was not going to be much, but I'm pleasantly surprised and glad that it's caused you to get more applications. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And hopefully when we get through this sausage making process on the budget, we're going to have an increase for all departments. That's the hope, and I think that's what the committee's looking at, and I appreciate all of they're making sausage, and I appreciate that. But for my part of it, I knew that this was going to come back, because when we were asking for all of these things that you're doing that we just talked about, that I knew it was going to require the staff. And so,
Rick, let me ask you this though: what good did it do to cut positions that weren't even filled? So
it was a paperwork deal, trying to make our budget right.
Well, we can always transfer money internally in the budget.
Well, that wouldn't.
So that's why I'm saying that there are some of us that think that we were cutting positions in order to provide raises for everyone else. And because at that point, there would have been no reason to really cut the positions. Just give everybody a 28-cent raise, and we'll do an internal transfer, or we'll vote to amend the budget. I mean, that just, there was a different way to do it if it was to be temporary. And so that's what I'm saying is, why would we, if they're not filled positions, you're not paying them, so it doesn't affect our budget.
So my understanding was exactly what...
Am I correct?
My understanding was exactly what Rick had said, and I thought Kelly, who, if I remember right, proposed it, that's what he was getting at.
Well, and I want to interject too real quick. And I knew that it wouldn't be forever fix, but it's back quicker than I thought it would be, because I thought when we were having that discussion that 26 employees was pretty much, I knew, like any department, it's eventually going to grow and have to have more, but I thought that was kind of fixing our problem for several years to come, was my opinion. But my question is this: if we get some of these contracts going, and let's just say that we can house under 100 people, so at your jail, and maybe we need to have 25 housed elsewhere, how does that affect your employment? Like, how many, do you still need 30 people if you've got under 100 inmates?
But you're going to pay more money housing elsewhere than you would with 30 people, right?
More,
so,
yeah,
you would actually be
particularly cost effective.
Yeah, because you're going to have people traveling back and forth. You're going to have.
I know, but in some of our discussion, there was a safety issue at one point, like not being 40% over our ability to house.
But there was a safety issue in transporting too many people back and forth.
I agree. A lot of issues.
So I would ask.
So can I interject just really quick, Judge?
I'd ask Darren to make some closing comments, and then we'll get this data that's been requested, and then we can revisit on Monday afternoon. But Darren, go ahead. Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Regarding the part-timers getting more hours than what they're supposed to, and the county having to pay into retirement, I know for sure that we have some part-timers getting more than the 99 hours a month Is that what you're,
On an average?
well,
level?
average in the last 6 months, yes.
Well, it's not gonna be over, it's gotta be over the year. And the thing is, it's not just a fiscal year. It could be a calendar year.
Right.
And there are a lot of moving parts to that.
They moved
average.
the goalpost on us, and that's what happened to us with fire.
Right. And so far, going back the past, prior to COVID, there has not been a pressing issue with that.
That's because I've been on the part-timers to make sure that they have not gone over that threshold. But I know we've been utilizing at least 3 of our part-timers. They've been getting 35.
We just kind of have to to be honest with you, just to put it out there, we just kind of have to let it shake out. And it takes about 24 months for it to shake out to find out.
So it hasn't been a concern in the past, but it is currently, if things continue currently at the jail, with at least these 3, they're getting more hours than what they're supposed to be getting.
You're saying it's something to be aware
And it would
of.
only apply to those 3 paying to retirement. It will not be across the board for all part-timers.
Right.
So,
okay,
yeah,
thanks.
that's another thing.
Okay, I appreciate it. In regards to the overtime hours, Michelle did get me the overtime hours for the last several years, and 2020, and I can get off the fiscal court these copies. It was just under 6,000 for 2020. 2021, it was about the same. 2022, it went up to just over 6,000, and then this year we're on par to go over 2022's numbers by about 200 hours, 250 hours.
Well, on the
How many employees did you have at the time? Now you've got
Right. Well, I mean, it fluctuated almost weekly, but back in 20 and 21, we were pretty stable. We were at 30. We didn't start to really hemorrhage.
How did your hours not dramatically increase when you lose a third of your staff?
So they did. Overtime did increase dramatically.
But not from 20 to 21.
Correct.
Not
We
that much. And
we
that's
did.
when you went to 18 or 19 people. So you would have a dramatic
That's not when we went to 18 or 19 people. We were fully staffed in 2020 and 2021. It wasn't until the beginning of last year that we began to hemorrhage as far as losing people and not. It wasn't until the beginning of 2022 that we began to hemorrhage, lose positions, lose people at the jail, and not get applicants to take those positions. For 22, it was 6,000.
And what was it in 21?
50, 57, 59.
And then about the same in 20?
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until last year, the last 18 months, that we really began to hemorrhage as far as the overtime.
And just while you're here, if you could tell us, you what your shifts look like.
Yeah.
Like how many you want on a shift and how many you have now is really what I'm, and what the shifts run so everybody knows.
Right. So we have to have 4 in order to run the facility per DOC standards. We have to have 4 to run the facility, which for me, that's pretty slim to have 4 of them because one of them has to be in the control room at all times. So that's only 3 out on the floor, and you know the number of inmates that we deal with and the emergencies that we deal with. Last night, quick sidebar, we had an emergency down here, and luckily we were at shift change close to it, and I was getting ready to have a meeting with some of the staff, and we had plenty of staff for that emergency. But if they'd had 4 on the floor, they would have been hurting to be able to accomplish what they needed to accomplish last night. So 4 have to be working in the facility at all times. I'd like to have 6 scheduled because people call in, people take vacations, and so that would give us a little bit of a buffer to at least sometimes have or plan on having 5 on a shift. They're 12-hour shifts, 7A to 7B, 7B to 7A, and so my goal when we talked a few years ago about adding 1 person to each shift would have been an increase of 4. We only increased it by 2 at that time, and I never came back and asked for those 2 additional persons, but that allowed us to get up to 6 on 2 of the shifts. 2 of the shifts still just have 5. And so if somebody's scheduled for vacation, if somebody calls in or 2 people call in, then we're struggling to make that coverage. So, and that was just at 30. That's
Yeah.
not even asking for the two additional positions that I really
Do
needed a
most of
couple
your
years ago.
full-times work 4 shifts a week, or is it 4 one week, 3 the next?
4 1 week, 3 the next,
Yeah.
yes. So,
Any questions about that? Because I thought that's a pertinent piece of
And
question.
something I did not mention, Judge, is we've got, for the classes, the additional classes that we're offering down here now, we've got a full-time deputy that's a floor deputy that's doing all that. And so she has added the classes, she's added the administrative part, she's added being in the classroom with the inmates. So we're pulling her off the floor so that she can accomplish those administrative tasks and the classroom tasks.
So really,
teaching
does that
the
make
inmates
5
on that shift?
on those shifts?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments?
So they work 4 12s and then 3 12s.
Correct, yes, sir.
So they have built-in. So every employee has 4 hours of built-in overtime
Yes.
every shift. So every pay
Every pay
period.
period.
I mean, you're getting close to 6,000 hours of overtime just normally, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's got to be up there. I mean, you're talking 30 people's 4 hours every week.
But he
4 hours every 2
Pay
weeks.
period. So you're at
You got
3,000
to figure in
hours.
those part-timers that he uses pretty strong too. That
Mm-hmm.
that offsets that mandatory,
But if somebody wants to work full-time, they get 4 hours of built-in overtime every pay period, every 2
Yeah,
weeks.
if they don't work any overtime, they automatically in a pay period have 4 hours of
hours.
overtime. Yes,
So
sir.
like in the fire department, we don't count the mandatory overtime that's there, correct, in the overtime?
Better ask John that.
We don't, so when you talk about your overtime numbers, because you have mandatory overtime by law, we don't count that when we're looking at overtime. That's correct. That's 10,000. So in reality, you have about a little over 3,000 hours in overtime.
I'd say that's about right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, so this is part, and this has been enlightening. I come from the private sector, so when I need something from work, I have to lay out all the facts while we get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what we always get. And that's, you've got to convince us. And you've kind of moved the line for me today on some of it, but I'm going to have some more questions. But, when you talk about the classes, we had no idea about the floor deputy doing these classes. Those things are the convincing stories that help, I don't know about everybody else, but help me formulate a reason to either be for or against.
And actually, I did mention it in my email.
Provided to make sure that.
I did mention in the email, Mr. Livingston, that we have added additional inmate classes, which requires additional administrative work and classroom time for our one floor deputy that is an inmate instructor.
But also the overtime. I didn't think about half of that overtime is built in.
It's automatic.
It's not, yeah.
So, lastly, one thing that we have to do, in my opinion, is get the detention center on the same pay day that everybody else is.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask, Jeff and Kara have lined out a plan that wouldn't cut anybody's check, and to navigate that, I just ask, I know you're not going to be here on Monday, but can we make that happen and do what we need to get that done? Because it would really help Kara specifically, and it just makes sense, everybody being on the same payday.
So I'm in total agreement with you, Judge, and I want to certainly work well with the rest of county government. I don't want any additional burden to be on any other entity in county government due to the detention center. And we're kind of the oddball out when it comes to the schedule. I don't know it was like that when I got down there.
It just never has changed.
I'll tell you a concern, and I just expressed this to Jeff this past week, and I haven't crunched the numbers, and I need to get up with him, but there's been some concern from the staff that they getting even more overtime hours in a week will negatively impact their paychecks. So they'll go to
what
working.
Jeff and Kara had mentioned was trying to schedule as many part-timers on a Saturday and a Sunday or something like that. The last thing I want to do, and we will not cut any, we're not going to short anybody's check.
So that's a different a different ball of wax. The transition over to a new work week, that's no problem. We can get that done. We can use part-timers, or the administrative staff, myself, can come in and cover shifts to make that happen. That's not a big deal. What was brought to my attention, this concern, was that if we went to the schedule that the rest of the county is on, then we would go from 4 work days 1 week, to 3 work days the second week. We would go from that to 5 work days 1 week and 2 work days the next week. And so their concern was that having 5 days in 1 week, their overtime's going to be much higher in that 1 week, and Uncle Sam is going to take a bigger chunk.
Next week sometime, it's scheduled a time for us to get around a table together, and we don't want to do anything that would negatively impact anybody's compensation. Yep. The request just was to try to get everybody on the same pay date.
In theory, I'm 100% for that, and I want to do it if we can do it without negatively impacting.
We'll sit down and get a conference on that and try to make sure we're not looking at something or not seeing something. So thank you. Okay. And if there's any other questions, we'll get that data that's requested. You wanted overtime hours?
Yeah, and it kind of, we're seeing we kind of got to break it down.
Yeah.
Because they get a certain amount.
Yeah.
But I was looking past that on the overtime, because I understood that they get some of this overtime. It's built in just like with the fire department. But it sounds like when I was reading through this, all these activities that used to be there, COVID blew everything up, so forget about that. But so here you are coming out of it. I just see it in your email, because you covered a lot of stuff that you're doing, and I can see that you need staffing, and you don't need to be, your staff doesn't need to be overly burdened with overtime, in my mind, because even though that's more money in their pocket, whatever, at some point a person wants their free time. Right. I mean, and they need it.
And we are doing, again, everything that we were doing a couple of years ago, and then some extras. And to cut our staffing levels when we're doing actually more than we were doing a couple of years ago, I think is just not the direction that we should be going.
Have we ever looked at, we do 12-hour shifts in the nursing world, looked at doing 3 and 3, 6 12s. So, you'd have to do some pay adjustments to get them up, 36 hours basically full-time. It's 0.9 in the nursing world. We'd have to do some pay adjustments to get people so they don't get shorted on their check, but then we, as a court, would see a savings of not paying 4 hours of mandatory overtime, and you give people another day off. They'd be working 6 days instead of 7, so they get that family time you're talking about, and we see a savings.
And possibly, would that savings increase some staff?
Oh, yeah. Yes. It would. Now, you're going to have to add some staff, probably 2 to 3, to fill in, because now you're going to be losing a staff a day, but I think we could probably see a real savings and increase work-life balance.
I'm open to anything. That would not cut the overtime hours they get, Ryan, on each pay period?
It would. So they would work 36 and 36.
Okay.
But you do a pay adjustment, so that would equal 40. That would be their full time. But yes, it's going to cut out their overtime hours for sure. Okay. But maybe they don't want that. I don't know.
It's the same thing we did with the courthouse staff years ago. I think before, you remember this, Stacy, we went to what, 35? 40 to 35, but we made pay adjustments so that nobody lost money.
Okay. Yeah, the concern for me would be, and for them would be them losing money.
But then the other thing is too, they have 36 hours, so there's a 4-hour buffer there. If you needed someone for a few hours, they can stay on, but they're not going to hit that overtime. It's not truly overtime.
So you have really 8, because you have 4 hours each week with somebody.
So we can add that to the list of things to talk about. All right. With that said, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for everybody for comments. Next thing, there's a request from the coroner to order a cooler that we've talked about in Budget Committee. The Budget Committee is recommending this. It's a 10-week to 12-week probably, time to get it.
Lead time.
Coroner's request is to go ahead and get authorization to order it. I'd make the motion to do so. Got a second? All right. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We got that get that thing ordered. And then Cam's got a Strobo Barkley, with our bluegrass water. We have been authorized to be able to oppose that with the Public Service Commission. I'll let Cam.
Yeah, I gave a brief update last Friday. Later that day, the Public Service Commission granted our motion to intervene in the case. So that's good. I think I've emailed you guys kind of a summary of what's gone on and a copy of that order. Our attorneys have basically sent out some discovery requests for information from bluegrass water. So that's going on. The other thing, really the only thing I guess publicly that I'd ask the court to maybe address right now was that our attorneys have recommended that we will need to hire a consultant or an expert witness to testify at a hearing. And so they've reached out to several. They sent a proposal from one named Ariel Miller, and then our attorney, David Spinard, has recommended retaining this person. Her estimated total cost is $6,171.72, and I intended to email this out to you all. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I do have a copy here of her resume and proposal, and I guess our attorneys are recommending that we need to do this. Technically, I think you guys have already authorized, Joe Pat to make this decision, but because of the amount, I just thought I need to bring it to your all consideration before I tell them yay or nay.
Well, you did send at least one email, and I thought also that you mentioned, is it
I think I mentioned
Aichi Forge or?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Another thing, thank you for bringing that up, is, a whole bunch of private individuals and companies have filed letters or sort of requests to intervene in this case. And Aichi Forge did that, and the Public Service Commission entered an order denying their request to intervene, but our attorneys have recommended that we touch base with them because our interests are essentially aligned with them. And so I think we've begun the process of doing that, and we probably need to meet with them and maybe also connect them with our attorneys to see if they want to, for lack of a better word, join forces,
And I've got the contact name. Jack Connor gave me the contact name, and Cam's. We're just going to try to connect.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a smart move, wouldn't it? I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do, and our attorneys also think that. So I think we'll reach out, and if any of you all have direct personal connections with them, we can.
Well, I don't have that, but you mentioned you're aware of maybe some citizens that are affected working legally, or?
Well, but I don't think. You correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think a citizen can file a motion to intervene individually, can they?
Well, they can. You can go on. This is a public website, so you can actually search through all the records regarding the case, and you'll see that there's all kinds of people have sent an email or sent a letter.
Okay.
Not like a formal legal motion, but sometimes they can be construed as motions to intervene.
I'd have to go back through my emails because I've been contacted by a fellow that's affected. He lives in, I think he's over in Harbor, no, not Harbor Village. I think he's in Riften Meadows, and they're affected. I think I shared that name. I'll have to go back through it. Maybe he's already contacted you. He's very knowledgeable. I'll go back and
if you'll send that to me,
I'll find it.
Follow up with that person.
Okay.
But we really don't need a motion. We're just trying to be transparent and letting you know that there's going to be an additional fee for an expert. If somebody's totally against that, speak up now.
No,
otherwise, we're going.
In fact, I'm just the opposite. I think it's great because it affects a fair amount of our citizens over in Chad's district that he serves and the district that I serve. It's several folks.
It's several hundred.
Yes,
I'll give them,
and it's a huge hit.
Yeah.
I'll give them the go-ahead then.
All right. I have no other new business. Does anybody else have any new business? Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Second for Mr. Hosteller?
Second from Chris
right?
Oh, Chris Runyon, hold up.
You say you had something for Chris in new business?
No, that was the engine.
I'll be real quick. I have a training request. Our own Mr. John Osterman has been asked to speak at the National Association of EMS Educators Annual Symposium. That's in Reno, Nevada in August. Right, I know. The money is budgeted for next year's budget. The conference is not until August, but to get in on the discounted, let me back up a second. The association is paying for his travel out there, his lodging out there, as a trade-off for him speaking. But there is a pre-conference workshop he would like to attend. So we'll pay for the lodging for that. It's $1,100. That'll come out of next year's budget. It's been budgeted. But to get in on the early registration fee, we need to go ahead and pay the registration for that pre-conference, and it's $300.
Will you withdraw your motion to adjourn?
I'm sorry.
I'll withdraw my
Reno,
second.
Nevada.
So is there a motion to accept or
Yes.
approve? A motion and a second to approve the out-of-state travel.
Yes.
And any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. And then there's a motion to adjourn. A motion to adjourn by Kelly, a second from Rob Jones, I see.
Yep.
All those in favor, we are adjourned.